Hi, so today we will discuss about the general economic environment. There are numerous general economic concepts that must be taken into account in engineering studies. And some of this, we have already introduced the katong mga concepts and um, mga terms in the previous discussion. So in broad terms, economic deals with the interactions between people and wealth. Of course, it should be people and wealth. Not should, but involved yun siya. And engineering is concerned with the cost-effective use of um, scientific knowledge to benefit the humankind. And when we say cost-effective, this means producing good results without spending much more money. For example, um, for example, if I want to give my baby a toy, so instead of unsa may kanang purpose why you want to give him a toy, diba? You want him to enjoy, to play. So if I want something that is cost effective, siguro I will not buy mga plastic toys and toys nga kanang bongga nga like mga cars, mga racing cars, ana. But instead, if gusto lang nako siya nga mag-play siya and he will have fun, I will give him kaldero, kalaha. No, just kidding. Siguro I will give him something nga kanang magamit niya in practical na application sa life. Wow, baby pa. Pero yeah, um, well, that's my stand as a parent. So, that's just an example of what cost-effective means. Okay, so cost-effective use. So today, we will introduce some of the basic economic concepts and indicate how they may be factors for consideration in engineering studies, and of course, the managerial decisions na the engineers would make in the future. So let's talk about consumer and producer goods and services. Okay, so of course, I know na you are familiar with this because mao ni siya atong everyday nga gina-deal, diba? So the goods and services that are produced and utilized may be divided conveniently into two classes. So na siya two classes. We have the um, consumer goods and services. Okay, consumer goods and services are those products or services that are directly used by people to satisfy their wants. Food, clothing, homes, cars, television sets, um, haircuts, opera or sine, and medical services are examples sa mga consumer goods and services. Okay, so the providers of consumer goods and services must be aware of and are subject to the changing wants of people to whom their products are sold. So dapat katong mga naga-provide adto providers, we call them providers, aware sila kung um, aware sila sa trend, okay? We also have what we call the producer goods and services. Okay? In your slide, it says now these are used to produce consumer goods and services or other producer goods. Okay, so machine tools, what else? Factory buildings, buses, farm machinery. These are examples. The amount of producer goods needed is determined indirectly by the amount of consumer goods or services that are demanded by people. Depende sa demand. Okay? However, because of the relationship is much less direct than for consumer goods and services, the demand for and production of producer goods may greatly precede or lag behind the demand for the consumer goods that they will produce. So goods and services are produced and desired because they have utility, meaning the power to satisfy human wants and needs. Thus, they may be used or consumed directly, or they may be used to produce other goods and services, meaning from one product, another product will be made. Okay, so utility is most commonly measured in terms of value. Nagyan siya value expressed in some medium of exchange as what we call the price that must be paid para makuha nimo ang kana nga particular item. Okay, so much of our business activity, including engineering, focuses on increasing the utility, meaning ang value of materials and products by changing their form or location. Thus, iron ore, for example, is worthy only a few dollars per ton. Imagine that. Significantly increases in value by being processed. Kung increase pa gina siya sa value pag i-process nimo combined with suitable alloying elements and converted into razor blades. So similarly, snow, worth almost nothing when found high in distant mountains, becomes quite valuable when it is delivered in melted from form several hundred miles away to dry Southern California. Kay gamay man ang demand dito, gamay ang kanang supply dito, wala kay makita nga, so mudako ang iyang value. Okay, so that is for the measures of economic worth. Okay, so let's continue about the necessities, luxuries, and price demand. So goods and services may be divided into two types. So these are the necessities and luxuries. So obviously, kanina mga terms are said to be relative because for most goods and services, what one person considers a necessity may be considered a luxury by another. So here's one example from the book. A person living in one community may find that an automobile is a necessity to get to and from work. So, kinahanglan niya. Kay, putang nato, layo, good siya. So, kinahanglan niya. Or, dili accessible ang ilaha. So, feeling niya, no, not feeling. He thinks nga necessity good ang car. So, if the same person lived and worked in a different city, adequate public transportation might be available. So in this case, an automobile would be a luxury na. For all goods and services, there is a relationship between the price that must be paid and the quantity that will be demanded or purchased. So before we proceed with that, I will give you another example about necessity and luxury. So for me, personally, ang coffee, I am really a coffee person. So for me, necessity good siya. Like every day, walang dili mabuhi without coffee and so siguro for some luxury, well, depende no kung Starbucks na inyong level pero ako black or ground coffee will do. So necessity na gid siya para maka-start sa day. Wow, kaya example gid ang coffee. Anyway, bitaw, let's just stick to our original example na lang. Okay, so what I've said earlier, for all goods and services, na ay relationship between the price that must be paid and the quantity that will be demanded or purchased. Okay, so let's talk about that. So if you will focus your on your screen na ay kanang graph, okay, sa figure 2-2, ang ako gi-mention earlier, the general relationship is being depicted in this figure, in this graph. So sa horizontal, we have the units of demand and ang vertical nato is ang price. Okay, so this figure is a general price demand relationship. And as we can see here, nga pag magkataas ang imong price unit, okay, so P, let's call that P, there will be less demand for the product. As the selling price is decreased, pag magkagamay ang selling price, magkadako or mo increase ang imong demand. So, yeah, so the relationship between the price and demand can be expressed in a linear function. So, here, we have a linear function na P is equal to A minus BD. So, ang A nimo is the intercept on the price axis, and ang negative B nimo is the slope. Okay, because it's a linear function. So, thus, B is the amount by which demand increases for each unit decrease in P. So, both A and B are constants, and kani mo follow ni siya nga equation. So, D is equal to A minus P over B. So, write ra siya. Okay, where B is not equal to 0. Competition. Okay, what do you mean by competition? Because economic laws are general statements regarding the interaction of people and wealth, as what we mentioned earlier, they are affected by the economic environment in which people and wealth exist. So most general economic principles are stated for situations in which perfect competition exists. So when you say perfect competition, this occurs in a situation in which any given product is supplied by a large number of vendors, and there is no restriction on additional suppliers entering the market. So, under any nga condition, there is assurance of complete freedom on the part of buyer and seller. So, perfect competition may never occur in actual practice because of multitude of factors that impose some degree of limitation upon the action of buyers or sellers, or pwede po both. So, wala kayo na siya nag-exist in actual practice. However, with conditions of perfect competition assumed, mas easier mo formulate of general economic laws. So here, on the right side sa PowerPoint is monopoly. So monopoly is the opposite pole from perfect competition. A perfect monopoly exists when a unique product or service is only available from a single supplier and that vendor can prevent the entry of all others into the market. Okay, so under such conditions, okay, so under any nga condition, the buyer is at the complete mercy of the supplier in terms of the availability and price of the product. So, perfect monopolies rarely occur in practice because, first, few products are so unique that substitutes cannot be used satisfactorily. And number two, ang naay mga governmental regulations that prohibit monopolies if they are unduly restrictive. So, wala pud rare gid pud kaayo siya. And monopoly is kanang I don't know if so may mga example sa monopoly. Like say let's just say na kanang game na board game ng Monopoly, if you have played it, diba nga kanang murag ang goal niya is para ma-monopolize nimo ang tibuok real estate ba na siya, no, nga mapalit nimo siya tanan, and then mo gain ka o mga rent, and para ma-monopolize hantod sa mahurot nimo ang kwarta sa imong mga opponents, yan na. So That's just an example of how monopoly works. Okay. Okay, so the total revenue function, or what we call the TR, that will result from a business venture during a given period is the product of the selling price per unit. So that's what the variable P represents, and the units, the number of units sold, or the D. So we have here the TR is equal to the price demand um, equals or equal to P times D. So if the relationship between price and demand is used, so pwede na to siya um, i-substitute from our previous equation that we have used. So we have now TR is equal to A minus BD times quantity times T. Or we can rewrite that one as AD minus PD squared. So the relationship between the total revenue and demand for the condition expressed in this equation may be represented by um, this this curve. So let's say na ang total revenue nimo is TR na sa imong vertical na part sa graph, and the demand is nasa horizontal. So with this curve, say for example this one, okay, so we have here ang maximum TR nimo is represented by this. So maximum TR, and ang price, this one, is equal to A minus B times D. So here, this point here is the D equal to A over 2B. So kani siya na formula is kani siya i-emphasize na to nga because of cost-volume relationships nga ma-discuss in the next chapter, most businesses would not obtain maximum profits by maximizing revenue. So dili nga nakadali ang pag-maximize sa mga profits sa mga businesses. So accordingly, ang cost-volume relationship must be considered and related to revenue. So because cost reductions provide a key motivation for many engineering process improvements. Okay, so the next topic will be about cost of volume and break-even point relationships. Okay, so fixed costs remain constant over a wide range of activities. Diba? We discussed these terms sa first pa lang na part. But ang variable costs may vary in total with the volume of output. Diba? Thus, at any demand D, kung naka-demand na D, ang total cost is, let's write the formula here. We have CT, or your total cost, is equal to fixed cost nimo plus ang variable cost. So, for the linear relationship assumed here, na atay CV nga this formula, CV times T, where ang kanisya nga CV is the variable cost per unit. Okay, please take note of that. Okay, so now we consider two scenarios for finding the break-even points. So here, on the left, mao ang scenario number 1. So, demand, ang scenario number 1 is, ang demand nimo is a function of price. While ang second scenario, which will be discussed later, is ang mahitabo kanang assumption nga ang price and demand independent siya sa each other. Okay, so now let's just discuss and stick to scenario number 1. So when total revenue as as depicted in the figure, in katong previous figure na akong gibuhat sa previous slide, and ang total cost is given by these equations that I wrote. This one here. Pag i-combine na nimo, ang typical results as a function of demand are depicted in this figure. Kani siya nga figure. So, at break-even point nga D1 prime, this point here, kani siya. Okay, so the total revenue is equal to the total cost. And an increase in demand will result in a profit for the operation. So, pag kaning D double prime nimo, pag nana siya sa D double prime, or is that D double prime? I think that's D asterisk ata siya. Kani siya nga, this one here, kani siya nga point, pasabot ana, naana ka sa imong optimal demand, ang profit is being maximized. And at break-even point na D2 prime, which is this one, the third one, ang total revenue and total cost are again equal. So, nabalik siya nga mag-equal silang duha. But additional volume will result in operating loss instead of a profit. So, obviously, ang conditions for which break-even and maximum profit occur are our primary interest. Dira ta mag-focus. So, first, at any volume demand na D, na akay, where do we write the formula? This one here. Profit, or imong loss, is equal to total revenue nimo minus ang imong total costs. Okay, so, let's substitute that one para ma-simplify na to siya gamit to ang mga formula that we have discussed earlier. So let's have an example so that we will, let's have an example na ang optimal demand when demand is a function of price. Sige, let's take this example. A company produces an electronic timing switch that is used in consumer and commercial products. So, ang fixed cost niya nga gihatag is $73,000 per month, and ang variable cost is $83 per unit. Ang selling price is $180 minus 0.02D based on sa equation. I'll just write the equation later. For this equation, determine the optimal volume, that's the first one that we will solve for this product, and confirm that a profit occurs instead of a loss at this demand, sa demand. B, find the volumes at which break-even occurs, that is the range of profitable demand. So, solve by hand and by spreadsheet. So, let's try to solve by hand. Okay, before we discuss the solution of this problem, let me just discuss this part na ganus mo occur ang profit, or in order for a profit to occur, so to achieve the typical results as depicted ato nga figure, naa dapat tay duha conditions. So I'll just write it here. Ang first, para na kay profit, ang A minus CV, kani siya, is greater than 0. So that is, ang price per unit nimo that will result in no demand has to be greater than, mas dako siya, greater than the variable cost per unit para maka-avoid ka og negative nga demand. Ang number 2 is, ang TR nimo or ang total revenue must exceed okay, must exceed the total cost nga CP for the period involved. So again, if these conditions are met, we can find the optimal demand at which maximum profit will occur by taking the derivative sa following ng mga equations na ato i-discuss po later along with the discussion sa solution ani nga example. Okay, with respect to D na siya and setting it equal to 0. Sige. Let's start. Sa A, diba, this one here, ang A nato is determine the optimal volume for this product and confirm that a profit occurs instead of a loss at this demand. So, ang optimal demand nato nga formula, kani siya, is A minus CV over 2B. So, this is kani siya. So, let's just substitute that one sa given na atay $180 minus 83. So, just assume na ang akong mga ginasulti na mga units ay na units sa mga values are in dollars. Okay, so 2 times 0.02. So B, kay nakalinear man ni siya from here. So this is equal to 2,425 units per month. Okay, so muna siya ang 2,425 units. Muna siya ang optimal nga demand. Now, for checking sa atong conditions na kani siya na conditions is A minus CV greater than 0 ba? Okay, let's find out. So, we're going to check that one and so 180 minus 83 is 97, which is greater than 0, diba? And ang total revenue ba, number 2, ang total revenue ba niya is TR minus CT greater than 0 for optimal demand na na-compute nato, which is equal to 2,425 units per month. Let's again find out. So, we have this, they call that one, formula na you will find this in your notes na lang. I will attach this one. So, we have negative BD, okay? So, let's write this one. Negative BD squared plus A minus CV times D minus CF equals 0. So, okay. So, 180 times 2,425. Diba? Muna siya ang number of units per month. Minus 0.02 na to na from here. Times 2,425 squared minus sorry, 73,000 plus 83 times 2,425. So, before that one, this formula is na-simplify siya from katugaling total revenue equals total cost, which is makakuha ta break-even point. And naka-formula ani nga AD, gi-substitute lang ni siya from the formula mentioned earlier, CF plus CVD. So, ay ka makakuha ani. Kani siya here. Sorry for kuan kay siya, but better check your notes for this formula. Okay, I will attach it sa lecture notes. Okay, so what's the answer for this? This is 44,612. Okay, so that's 44,612. Therefore, demand na 2,425 units per month will result in a maximum profit of 44,612 612 per month. Okay, so that's for letter A. That's how we solve the letter A. Okay, optimal volume and the profit na ni-occur ani nga demand, certain demand. Okay, so let's proceed to letter B. Okay, B. Okay, the find the volumes at which break-even occurs. That is what is the range of profitable demand. So let's start by, I think I wrote this formula earlier, but let me just kanang write it again. So we have TR here, TR or total revenue, total cost. So this is your break-even point, diba? And I also I already wrote this, introduced this formula earlier, so I'll just have to write it again for the sake of this kanang problem. So we just have to substitute. Our B is still this one, so 0.02 B squared plus your A is 180 minus ang imo CV nga 83, that's CV per unit, diba? And multiply it with D minus CF. Do we have our CF ba? Yes, this one. So 73,000 equal to 0. So simplify that one, we will have 0.02 D squared plus 97D minus 73. 1, 2, 3 equals 0. So in your lecture notes, kindly check equation 2-12. We will be using that formula in deriving the following solution. So this is negative 97 plus and minus, because we are talking about the range naman go, that's why we are using this formula. Okay, so 4 times this is negative 0.02, sorry, this is negative 73,000, and this is raised to 0.5. From the formula, so natay negative 0.02. Okay, that's 59.74 over negative 0.0. That's the answer. So 59.74, nakuha na nato siya by simplifying kaninga bracket, raised to 0.5. So 59.74, that would be equal to 932 units per month. Tama ba? And lastly, we have negative 97 minus 59.74 divided by 0.04, we have 3918 units per month. Now, you notice sa difference nila, meaning ang range sa profitable demand nimo ranges from 932 to 3,918 units per month. So we use the plus and minus nga range diri so that we will arrive sa possible na range niya kung pila ang profitable demand units per month. Okay, so that's it for this example. Now for scenario 2, in finding the break-even point, it says here sa left ninyo na kanang on the PowerPoint, when the price per unit na P for a product or service can be represented more simply as being independent of demand versus ang linear function of demand nga gi-assume na to katong pinaka first na equation. Okay, so and is greater than the variable cost per unit na CV, a single break-even point results. Then, under any assumption, the demand is immediately met. So, TR, your total, this one here. So, this one here, TR is equal to P times T. So, if the linear relationship for costs is also used in this model, the typical situation is depicted in this figure. So, kanina na figure is ang typical break-even chart with price, P, and ang constant. Okay. So, yeah. So, here, kanina nga part is the loss, but take note nga ang volume nimo or demand nimo on the horizontal and ang cost and revenues nimo on the vertical side. So, maabot ka diri nga point, this is what you call the profit. Okay, from ang demand nimo, from this point from the fixed costs. So, this is your break-even point. Further than that, naa kay profit, pero pag less than siya na or before siya sa break-even point, you have the loss. So, we have the TR here, or the total revenue, and the CT, or the total cost. So, also this line here, kung asa mag-start ang imong loss, is ang imong mga fixed cost. Dili ang fixed cost, okay, and ang D. So, let's have an example where a break-even point when price is independent of demand. Okay, let's read this one. An engineering consulting firm measures its output in a standard service or unit, which is a function of the personal grade levels in the professional staff. The variable cost, CV, is $62 per standard service hour. The charge out rate, selling price is 85.56 per hour. The maximum output of the firm is 160,000 hours per year, and its fixed cost CF is 2,024,000 per year. For this firm, letter A, what is the break-even point in standard service hours and in percentage of total capacity? And letter B, what is the percentage reduction in the break-even point or sensitivity if fixed costs are reduced 10%, if variable cost per hour is reduced 10%, and if the selling price per unit is increased by 10%. So let's have letter A first. Okay, for letter A, of course, we have this formula. The total revenue is equal to total cost because you're going to find a break-even point na to, diba? So, PD prime equals CF plus CVD prime. So, by writing this one, we will have this formula. D prime CF CT CF. So, we also have D prime na pila ang ano niya, CF niya per year, 2,024, right? And P niya, selling price or charge out rate niya is 85.56 per hour. And naakay CV or variable cost nga 62. So you will have, calculate this one, you will get 85,900 hours per year. And ang D prime is with the given nga, sa nakuha ni mo na answer nga 85,900 hour, 908 hours per year, i-divide na nimo siya o 160 hours. This one here. So, naakay 0.537. And by 0.537, ang pasabot-an na is nasa sa 0.50 nasa sa 53.7% of capacity. Yeah. So, kana siya. Now, for B, di ba, ang percentage reduction daw, pila ang percentage reduction sa break-even point if ang fixed cost kay na-reduce siya of 10%. Sige. If na-reduce ang fixed cost of 10%, wait lang, here, if na-reduce siya of 10%, ang CF, dili na kay butang. So, naakay, of course, 0.92024 fixed cost. Mo nga fixed cost, 1,000. Right? Over formula, 85.56. Ano siya, ang P mo, minus 62. Nga CV mo. So, kana siya, naakay 77,318 hours per year. Muna siya ang demand. And with that also, sa imong 85,908 minus 77,318 over 85,908 equal niya siya sa okay, so we will have 0.10 or a 10% reduction in D. Take note nga, kani sa 85,908, mo ni siya ang nakuha nato na units. Tama ba? Mo ni siya ang nakuha nato from letter A na hours per year, na-solve nato nga hours per year. From standard service hours. Okay, so, a 10%, putang na ko dali, for as continuation, a 10% reduction in CV, 0.10, in percentage of total. What is the break-even sa capacity? Kaya siya, percentage sa break-even point. Fixed cost is reduced by so 10% kani siya, pila ang percentage reduction is the answer, and if ang variable cost CV per hour i-reduce na po na to in 10% ang reduction sa CV, so that's what we are solving right now. And let's have this formula. So 2.024 million, 2 million, 2.024. So that would be 85.86 imong P, tama ba? Minus 0.9 nimo nga reduction sa imong 62 nga variable cost. Okay? So you will have 68,011 hours per year. Ano siya masolve. So, okay. Let's use again katong standard na atong na solve earlier sa letter A. So, minus 6011 over 85,908. So, pila. Again, ang atong ipangita manggod kay ang percentage reduction. So, mo nang we do this kaninga kuan na formula. Kung naman na standard minus kato imong na-solve over standard. So, 0.208. Therefore, naakay 20.8% reduction, 0.8 reduction in D prime nimo. Okay? So, how about if naatay increase nga 10% sa selling price per unit? Separate this one here. So, if natay 10% na increase D prime, sorry that medyo ano ni siya, salasan lang na po siya gisulat. And bisag unsa na lang siya na color. So, since naaman tay 10% na increase, dili na 0.9. So, 1.1 na ka kay 100 plus 10% nimo. So, 85, ang selling price na to is 85.56. Mo na siya ang na-increase. Minus, from the formula, minus 60 to nga variable cost nimo. So, you will get 63,021 hours per year. So, again, let's compare that one with the standard na ato na compute. Okay. So, 85,908. Pila siya? You will have 0.266 or this is 26.6% reduction in D prime na na-compute nimo sa first part. Okay, so thus, the break-even point is more sensitive to a reduction in variable cost per hour than to the same percentage reduction in the fixed cost. So furthermore, notice that the break-even point in this example is highly sensitive to the selling price per unit. Mas dako siya effect or mas sensitive siya sa selling price per unit niya. 26.6, we have 20.8 and 10%. Okay? Yeah. So lastly, market competition often creates pressure to lower the break-even point of an operation. Muna siya. So the lower the break-even point, kung mas gamay, the less likely that a loss will occur during the market fluctuations. Also, if ang selling price remains constant or mag-increase, a larger profit will be achieved in any level of operation above the reduced break-even point. So I think that's the end of this topic. I hope that you learned something. Thank you.